Have you ever heard a leader say, "They aren't listening to me"? This is a classic sign that an entrepreneur or a new manager or supervisor lacks the process of learning. This is the third and final of the functions of leadership. So far, we've talked about the story of vision and how this is different from the entrepreneur's idea of a product or service. We've also talked about the function of relationships and how the interactions between members of the group allow work to be performed and combined in productive or unproductive ways. The last piece of the leadership puzzle is the process of learning. Today, I'm going to show you some of the most common mistakes that entrepreneurs and new managers or leaders make. But first, we have to understand learning. Learning occurs only when we change our behavior. To have a different impact on the members of the group, we must act in different ways. We must perform new behaviors. If we don't change our behavior, then we aren't learning. Just reading something in a book or thinking about an idea is not learning. Learning occurs only when we reach the point of behavioral change. So everything we talk about today is designed to make that happen. Most leaders learn unconsciously. That is, they learn without realizing what's occurring. This means that they're limited by chance. They're limited by the behaviors that they happen to be exposed to around them or in the ideas that they encounter. And it also means that they often don't get all the way to behavioral change. This limits the amount and the direction of their learning. What we need instead is a deliberate process of learning. This produces more predictable improvements in behavior, and those improvements are directed towards what is relevant and what works in the situation facing a specific leader. In the end, this allows us to actively acquire new behaviors rather than depend on chance to get us where we need to go. And that in turn increases what we are capable of achieving through the process of learning and therefore through our leadership practice. There are three parts to a deliberate learning process. First, there are the markers of learning. These are markers or indicators that a specific situation has the potential to be better if we are capable of learning. Secondly, we need to understand the three places to find new behaviors. These are the ways that we can seek out and incorporate new behaviors into our leadership practice. Finally, we need the adult learning cycle, which is a way to analyze and understand a situation that results in behavioral change. I'll talk more about the specifics of each of these three tools in later videos. For now, let's look at some specific examples of how entrepreneurs can use these general tools to be more effective learners. Entrepreneurs and managers are used to focusing on the performance of work. To be effective learners, they must observe how others interact, not just the output of their tasks. The organization, any organization, is a system of human beings. These human beings complete and combine individual tasks. The way that they do so as a group is what produces effective outputs. As you begin to bring people into your organization, you must observe how others are interacting, where things work and where they don't, and understand what the root cause of those challenges is, where it lies in the function of vision and where it lies in the function of relationships. Secondly, as an entrepreneur, you have a set of behaviors that you are comfortable with, that you have practiced, and that come naturally in a given situation. You have to understand and recognize that these behaviors may not be the most effective ones in any situation. This means coming back to the markers of learning, these feelings that show us when something could be better. If we get a result that we don't like, we have to change what we do so that we get a different result in the future. There are also times when we face a new situation where we don't have a preferential behavior. In these cases, we have to seek out options so that we can figure out what might work. Both of these situations require a deliberate learning process, which begins with the recognition that we could do better in any given situation. To make this easier, we can use one of the places to find new behaviors, modeling, to seek out examples of what works. These are examples of what kind of leadership we would like to accomplish. The important thing is not to look at the behavior performed, but rather to look at the outcome. What did the behavior cause in the group? The reason for this is that every leadership situation is different, and every behavioral solution will also be different. When we look to others for examples of excellent leadership, we are not looking for what they did, but for what impact they had on the group. From there, we can work backwards through the places to find behaviors and through the adult learning cycle to figure out what we ought to do in our specific situation. And this brings us back to this statement, they aren't listening to me. We have to understand the reasons that individuals, quote, aren't listening to me, unquote. This is not to say that some people just aren't going to work hard or aren't going to do things the right way, but it's nearly always possible to get people to do what they should if you understand the reasons that they aren't doing so now. The functions of vision, relationships, and learning shape what is possible for the group. The statement, "they aren't listening to me," is really a symptom of a lack of leadership performance caused by a lack of a deliberate learning process.